You're listening to the Smith House Adventure Show.
And the other thing I need to mention is because, like, I give you, like, hey, man, what do you do? And all this. One thing I don't actually call myself is a cowboy. That is a term that you can't call yourself. You can't call yourself tough. Can't call yourself smart. Can't call yourself a badass, right? You can't call yourself a cowboy. Those are honors bestowed on you by people that you respect. And the day I earned my spurs, which is a thing in cowboy culture, is you don't just show up in an outfit wearing spurs, especially if it's not your horse. Because that is it can be a very aggressive thing to do to an animal if you don't know how to ride and it's not your animal. But one of the things that'll happen through your, a rite of passage in that community is at some point, someone who knows more than you will give you theirs. And I earned my spurs last year, and they are on a hanger, and I'll never wear them again because that's my badge. That's like your medal that you get when you go to war. That's like a cowboy medal. And to call yourself that, like, I think cowboy is not actually an adjective; it's a verb. It's a thing you do. It's not what you are. And in the effort to not use that to define myself, because I don't define myself by what I do. I used to, and I had to learn different when I had to transition out of the military, which was one of the hardest things I ever did. Is that's just a thing I do. It's not what I am. And that's why I use it as a verb. And there might be some people that'll argue with me out there, much like there'll be lots of people that argue with the stuff I talk about in service. But that's a very important distinction in the cowboy world, in the Western world, is like I know guys that have like ridden at outfits for 20 years and they still won't call themselves a cowboy because that's not what you do. That's something you let a pretty girl call you when you're wearing a hat at the bar. That's something that someone will call you that at a grocery store when, like, and when you wear that brim, there's an element. So say there's like 5 guys in like a convenience store and a guy pulls a gun and the other people in the room aren't wearing cowboy hats. Who do you think the old lady is going to look at to do something? Maybe it's like wearing a uniform. It's a symbol, it's a tradition, it's an honor, and there's a line, there's an edge and a code that's associated with it that you got to be prepared to live when you put that on. And that's my take on it, and that's my friends, and that's part of the ethos of what this warfighter cowboy thing is.
No, and that it makes sense in the certain things too, right? Like where, a person that goes out there and they buy things, oh, I'm a cowboy or I'm this, or I'm that. And, at the end of the day, they're still the fucking new guy, right? Like, oh, yeah, okay, cool. You just joined that special forces unit or that fire department or whatever, but you just passed the basic to say that you can play this game. You still haven't earned it yet. And yeah. I think a lot of that comes too with like the social media influencer stuff of, what am I? I'm this, I'm that. They try and throw 50 million definitions about what they are, or, I influence makeup or whatever it is, right? And everyone's always trying to throw a title out there of what they are.
Yeah.
Instead of sometimes just being like, I don't know, I'm me.
Yes. That you're right, man. When I got in trouble and I got progress review board, whatever they call it in the Army when you're in shit. And I was asked by the RSM, standing at attention, what do you think it means to be an operator? And I had all the wrong answers. I was in such a rough play. Man, he caught me off guard and I jacked the whole thing up. It was terrible. And I got thinking about that. And when I started thinking about like who I was and how I defined myself, because the doctors that I was at this point forced to go see based on my behavior and my demeanor and my mental health and my substance abuse and my performance at work, they started working on my personal definition of self. How do you define yourself, to you? And who are you? That's a hard question, man. If that's the question that everybody in life should try to the hardest to figure out, that's it. And I don't know what the answer to that is, but I know what kind of son I want to be. I know what kind of husband I want to be. I know what kind of brother I want to be. I know what kind of friend I want to be. And if I don't know who I am, at least I know the answers to those. And that was the first step for me in 2015. And it's been a heck of a journey. And a lot of people, and once again, you said, once you pass the baseline for these things, That doesn't mean you're like in the club, bro. It just means that you've achieved the baseline level thing so that you can get to wear the badge and do the job. But really, you can be on the team. And that's what I think we're all looking for, is that community. Like, I don't know what I am in life, man, but I know I'm a community builder. And I've just had the privilege to just put the right people in the right group chat or the right cow gathering or the right club, and it takes off. And I don't know anything about managing crap. Like, I was an E5 Master Jack my whole life. I did shop floor leadership. When it comes to other stuff, man, I stayed at the same rank level my entire career, which is actually, I think, pretty remarkable. I've also never been in an armored vehicle. That's my other like hallmark to my service. But yeah, I'm a community builder, man. I honestly think that community is what we're really lacking these days. People want to talk about is what's best for these countries, who we vote for. Like, no, the answer to making this country better isn't who was on the ballot. It's the person in the mirror. Go be a better part of your community. Go to church. Go to the Legion. Show up at these community events. Be an asset to the people that live within 1 square kilometer of where you live. And that's what's going to make this place great again. Like, these places, like, I think that we're in such peril in this day and age here in the West, in the freest place in the world that's falling the fuck apart. But nobody's taking ownership for that at an individual or a household level, you know? And I think I don't know why it's happening, but I think if we were the neighbor to be trusted and in turn could trust our neighbor a little bit better, if we could be a community member that was an asset and in turn rely on that community a little bit more, it would be a good start. It doesn't start at the ballot. Who cares who sits in Ottawa at 24 Sussex? Who cares who sits at 1600 Pennsylvania? It starts here with us. And I don't think we as citizens are taking enough responsibility for how much impact we can possibly have to better the life of the 5 closest people to us.
Yeah, and I think one of the main problems, though, is kind of that crowd effect, right? Like, you know, there's a crowd of 100 people and they see somebody robbing somebody else or a fire happening, and they assume, oh, somebody else is going to call the fire department. Somebody else is going to go help that person not be mugged. And then nobody does anything because everyone's going, well, somebody else will take the initiative. Somebody else will. So I think that's going to be key for a lot of these problems and stuff, is somebody going, okay, nobody else is going to do it. Fuck it. All right. I'll be in charge. All right. Let's figure out what we're going to do here. Okay. This works. This doesn't work. We can compromise on these things. Okay, let's go. And I think that's what it's going to take. But I think the other weird thing is, because everything's so tribal now, is that if you try and do anything, you'll either be labeled alt-right, alt-left, or some other kind of thing where you're like, okay, I can't even start anything because both sides are coming at me saying that I'm working for the other side, when really this is a very center kind of idea. So.
I think that, so the first thing that you mentioned about everybody's relying on someone else to do something. There's this really awful YouTube video of it's a team climbing Everest. And a cornice breaks off, and this cornice contained a bunch of bodies that had been frozen there since like the 80s or something. And there's all these like bodies sliding down there, like frozen bodies in like 70s jump snowsuits, mountain suits. And this woman recording it, all she can do is scream, somebody do something. A few years ago, I was not prepared for this. I was not in a great space. I was really just kind of having a tough time. And I'm driving from I'm driving the highway. Are you in Alberta? No, you're in BC.
BC, yeah.
There's a beautiful drive from about Hinton area down to like absolutely fuck all. Because one, everybody's terrified to get in there. Everybody's doesn't know what to do. They don't have leadership. They don't have that self-starting, resilient kind of like, if no one's going to do something, at least I can do something. And even if I fail, at least I don't have to lie in bed the rest of my life thinking I could have helped maybe. And so I get there, and it was this mass casualty vehicle thing. And it was, one of the vehicles, like, cool, 4 people, vital signs absent. These guys are all dead. Next, and this building's on fire, or this truck is on fire. And nobody at that point was, this is going to sound sad, nobody was really to be helped. Like, it was kind of a grim scene. I had a bit of a trigger moment from some IED stuff and some vehicle accidents downrange. And I didn't stick around for authorities to show up. If there had been job work to do, I would have done it. And I don't think that's why the other 17 people were standing around. But you're right. There is a lot of tribalism here too. But I think that tribalism is good and bad. We're not using it to build individual communities. We're using it so that I'm on the right side of this stuff. Or what's more important is that I vocalize how wrong your stuff is. Instead of everybody, this is going to sound harsh, why doesn't everybody just mind their own fucking business and live their life, and they make it better for those around them, instead of trying to point out how everyone else is doing it wrong? Mm-hmm. There's that dope ass, I think it's Roosevelt or it's Churchill, I can't remember who wrote it, but it's called The Man in the Arena. And it's not about all these people standing around criticizing the government or everybody else's stuff. It's like, the honor belongs to the person that's actually doing something. Even if they're wrong, even if they're doing it in the wrong way. That guy's got more honor than someone sitting on Facebook getting fat, smoking weed, and eating fast food, bitching about what everybody else is doing. Fuck that guy.
Yeah, exactly. But the unfortunate thing, though, too many people think that criticizing is doing something. So they're like, yeah, he's building the bridge, but my bitching is also kind of helping, right? And so, people, they put more of their effort into either getting someone to agree and the likes or whatever, or, the rage kind of thing that happens.
Yeah.
But, I mean, again, like, the internet is still a very new thing for people that, what is it? They say like people like 180 people, like with the tribes and stuff like that. Like, we're not really meant to know what billions of people are up to and the plights of how everything is evil over here and wrong over there. Like, it is too much for the human psyche sometimes to take in a lot of that. Like, again, if it's journalism, if it bleeds, it leads. So you're always seeing those kinds of stories, and oh man, everything's evil, everything's wrong, it's so bad. But when you go outside and you see the real world, you go, wow, people are getting along, people aren't going crazy and stuff like that. And I think we're gonna learn how to but again, this is still a very new thing where we can get so much sensory overload and then you're seeing a lot of people now, they can't handle it, and they go crazy with some of this stuff.
I had a personal experience that myself, man, when Ukraine-Russia kicked off. I'm sitting in my condo, in my partner and I's condo. It was her condo. I helped pay, whatever, it doesn't matter. Our condo, our home, and Ukraine-Russia kicks off. And I meet with a buddy at a saloon, have a couple. He's in town for a doctor's appointment. And my social media is just flooded with Ukraine shit. And I'm getting DMs from 16-year-old kids in like Barty Bogue, New Brunswick, who were pimple-faced kind of geeks, and they want to go and fight in Ukraine. And they're like, what kind of shotgun should I buy? Or a guy in Calgary who wants me to endorse his drone so that a big company will whatever, and he can go over and do the shit. I'm getting guys like, what kind of boots should I wear to go to Ukraine? I'm like, oh my God. And now I'm like 4 to 10 levels removed from this war. And it's flooding my feed with like old school style war fighting shit. And I can't handle it. I drink a bottle of whiskey about it. And I ended up spending the rest of the afternoon on a bar stool. And I'm not proud of this. This is a low moment. Like fighting with people on the internet drunk and like about Ukraine stuff.
Mm-hmm.
After that, I took about a 20-month break from social media. Absolutely needed it. I would take pictures, and some of the stuff I posted since is like, that's been my thing. And then since I've curated my content I consume to my opinion. There's no more chicks in bikinis. Like my suggested Meta or Explore page is full of girls in yoga pants with, clickbait crap, whatever. Like forget all that. It's my stuff's mental health. My stuff's what my friends are doing, homestead things. It's just like what I believe to be wholesome and things I'm interested in, and not that other crap. And it was at that moment on that bar stool and that in that 22-month or that 20-month break, I decided I was going to make a conscious decision to be an uninformed and ignorant citizen of neither country, but of the world. If I had gone on and done my homework about South Sudan before I went there, I probably wouldn't have went. But I didn't. I didn't know that I was going to the third most failed state in the planet, 4 or 6 most dangerous in the world, depending on what list you look at, the newest and poorest country in all of Africa. If I had knew that information before, had known that before I went, maybe I wouldn't have went. But because I went with an open mind and I didn't poison it with all this crap that's on the news, like I used to do this thing when I was in uniform where I would get up in the morning and as the coffee pot's filling up before I'm going to go PT or whatever, I would open up CBC and I would read the comment section. And within minutes, my day was ruined. I was angry. It was like, why am I doing this to myself? So I actually make a conscious effort, and I got taught it's a decision for me, and it's uninformed, and it's actually maybe very ignorant for me to do that because maybe it doesn't seem like I'm not invested. But I don't read the news. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, with school, I keep up with the news. It's just craziness, basically. You're saving yourself a headache.
Yeah, and that's probably one of the single greatest that exercise and having. Like I'm very critical of my circle of friends. And because when I used to be like down in the hole with street drugs, the 5 people I talked to the most and spent time around were also people that did drugs or sold drugs or something, right? And that's that saying, like you're like the 5 people you spend most time around. I'm really critical about the 5 people I spend most time around. And I have been the guy where I was the 6th man out because I wasn't a healthy influence on that person. And I don't blame them. I'm actually proud of them for it. So I'm critical of my friend circle and I'm critical of what I consume. Not watching the news and keeping really, really good people in my inner circle has been the single greatest thing to benefit my mental health in my whole life.
Mm-hmm. And that's important, right? Like you said, the people that you were hanging around were using drugs or selling drugs. And it's not going to be that positive thing where, if you have that person who, they're looking after their health. They're, not drinking as much or in excess or even at all. You'll start to try to change yourself a little bit, right? Like if you have great mentors that you can kind of model yourself around and then you go, oh, look, he's got his head on his shoulder. He's not doing this. He's not doing that. He's got a plan. Let's look at my other friend. Oh, he's fucked up because he's high as a kite on something, right? Yeah. And some people are afraid to lose those friends. Like, oh, I've known him for 20 years. He's from kindergarten. We've known each other. And it's like, well, yeah, but, maybe you need a new friend or less friends. Cut out some of your friends. And I think it's the hard thing that people have a difficulty trying to do. But then once you do it, you're like, wow, actually, that person was pretty toxic, the things that they would say or do. And man, I'm not as anxious anymore or something like that. And that's the big thing. Sometimes the things that are our biggest comfort because we've known it so long is the biggest anchor around us that is just dragging us down to the bottom.
Yeah. Yep. I get that, man. Absolutely. I struggle. This is maybe a TMI thing I'm going to share with the viewers or whatever, but I struggle a lot with romantic relationships because I would categorically, and this came from a lot of like self-worth stuff, and I would pick partners that were really bad for me, or at least stay with partners that were bad for me, or I would be bad in those relationships because I felt I didn't deserve it. I didn't deserve nice things, so I would sabotage. And I have this rule where in between serious committed relationships, I take a year off. Absolutely. Because I brought more baggage into potentially good relationships because I didn't take that time to self-assess and, grieve and do these things. And this is also a really weird topic for like a retired SF guy who does a bunch of hard dude cowboy shit, whatever. to talk about like their romantic struggles, but that's an actual like real thing for me. I've spent a lot of time and consumed a lot of content on what it's like to be a 39-year-old man dating in 2024. And it is a wild, like if there are guys out there that watch this that are in the same boat, I want to hear from them because I want to see what kind of stuff they're doing. I don't want to hear bitch stories about their exes and stuff, but I have learned so much by looking in the mirror and talking to doctors and reading books and listening to podcasts about what I want, being unabashedly direct about my boundaries, about my desires, and the direction I want to take my life, that it has absolutely changed my outlook on interpersonal relationships. And that translated and bled over to my interpersonal ones, like my buddies. Like I've got buddies that I genuinely absolutely adore, but I won't hang out with them more than like once a month because it's just negative, toxic shit that has nothing more involved than on a bar stool in a dive bar in a town where no one knows us because they've been run out of other places and that kind of thing. And as much as I adore those friends, like we talked about, cutting out people, like I care deeply for them and I want nothing more than to see them succeed. But from a place of self-care, which is not a thing a soldier is selected for, I can't do it. The self-care thing has also been another huge battle in my life because in the Army, you're actually picked and promoted based on your, what am I looking for here? Based on an ability to care about yourself less and less and less and less.
Yep.
Like,
weapon kit self.
Absolutely. Like as a 2IC or a deck commander, your job is to ignore yourself and make sure your truck is fueled, there's ammo in your back in the truck, then you make sure your guys' guns are clean, and then you clean yours, and then you make sure they shower and eat, and then you make sure that they're read in and they go to ground. And if you're lucky, at the end of it, you might get something hot to put in your gut and get 4 hours of rack. You put yourself last. Countering that after 20 years of having that ingrained in my system has been one of the hardest things I've done in my transition from the military back to civilian life. Because there is nothing wrong with saying no to a buddy. There is nothing wrong with not going out and drinking all night. There is nothing wrong with cutting out people that don't serve you or exes that don't serve you or any of these things. It's caring for yourself. Like, I don't know if you're a fan of Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, I've seen his stuff and everything like that. Yeah, so I know of him. I don't watch him regularly, though.
He's got a book. So I've written everything he's read. I've read everything he's written. And he's got one in his 12 Rules for Life book is take care of yourself the way that you would feel responsible for a friend. So like if your buddy rocks up in the state that you are, you would make him a healthy meal. You'd take the alcohol and put it away. You would make sure you drink some water. You would listen to him. You would actually compassionately listen to him. You'd fix him a bed so he got a good night's sleep. And we could do that for a friend, but for some reason we don't do that for us. You'd make sure that he's balancing his work and his life properly. You would make sure that all the things that you do for someone you care about. At a start, do those things for you. For me, that looks like, you know, when you have a date over or your wife and you're making her dinner and you plate her food nicely. When you live by yourself, doing that for yourself as if you were doing it for someone you really cared for, that's a thing I do. And that small thing started a snowball effect on all the other ways I care for myself. And it's wild. Like, now I still look like a dirtbag and don't cut my hair and I shower twice a week, whatever. But that's a huge piece of it, man. Learn how to care for yourself is something I had to learn in transition.
Yeah, and exactly. And especially coming from the military and stuff like that, to think about yourself, you're a piece of shit leader if you do, right? So yeah, I mean, again, how fast do you eat? My lady's always like, wow, you eat fast. I'm like, yeah, because I was yelled at if I didn't get this done. And they would make you dump it in the garbage and be like, no, your timing is to go line up now because your next class, like, yeah, like eat like an idiot. And then you start slowly learning, like, wait, there's flavor. Wow, this food, this has something to it. But yeah, like for that first bit, you just eat it fast, eat it fast, eat it fast. And then it just kind of gets ingrained in. And that's another one where slowly take a few bites. This is good. Swallow it, enjoy, take another bite. Like, yeah, it's like, you know, how often you eat like the Tasmanian devil because you've got 10 minutes to eat, you're hungry, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely, man. That's a huge one. And going to like, you know, I don't know how many nights I've like having a digital detox is good too, man. I did 4 days at the 4 or 5 days at the Heroes and Horses Ranch this year as a student, kind of not a student instructor. Like I've gone back and given time and worked for that outfit since I graduated. But I was in a place this summer where I needed to rock up to this place, hand in my keys and my phone because it's a no phone program. You get your phone on Sundays for like half a day because of how much doom scrolling I was doing. Like, gosh, like, and not even, I mean, I'm still consuming good stuff, but I will nuke hours of time of my life with a beer in my hand and scrolling. And I'm like, gosh, and I had to like cut that out. And it's helped since. I'm actually getting bad at it again. I need to make a change. Actually, I'm really lucky, man. This building I live in he's a great landlord. And there's a couple guys. The guy next door was a 275 Ranger, and then a guy from the 82nd. Yeah, and like just a bunch of vets. It's like this building I live in is like Full Metal Jacket meets the set from Friends with like Jennifer Aniston. It's fucking wild.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so like I rely on these guys. I talk to them about things like, hey man, like you know, it's like I'm cooking good groceries tomorrow. Do you want some? Or like it's really good. And I can count on these guys for all kinds, man. When I had my health issue the other day, you know, these guys would come over and check in on me and these guys think it's just like, this is the community, this is the tribe stuff I'm talking about, man. We're not meant to live alone. And I'm going to need to make a couple changes in the next week. Because my challenge last week was to spend 4 nights in my own bed because I haven't done that in the 60 days I've lived here. I'm always off doing stuff. There's always a ranch to go ride for, or a music show to play, or all this other stuff. And when I get out there, I just stay with a friend or whatever, and we visit. And that usually involves alcohol, or at least at a minimum, staying up late visiting. It's that fall of the year where there's elk to hunt, festivals to go and check out, cool concerts 3 hours away. And I'm a really social guy. I'm a social introvert. Like I don't need to talk to people, but I need to be in a room with them a lot. And I think that's that teammate guy I want to be. And I'm not as much of a teammate these days as I could be or as much as I want to be. And so I'm going to be relying on these guys in the next little while to be like, man, when you go to work tomorrow, can you lock my phone in your house? Like, you know, stuff like that, to just like impose a digital detox from that stuff, because like you get addicted to it, man. That dopamine hit you get when you like stuff or someone likes your stuff. Like yeah.
Oh yeah. Like, when I did the post about like, you know, we're going to do an episode, I mean, I was blowing up, right? And I'm like, oh my God, wow, holy, like 3,000 people almost, like, you know, seeing this thing and stuff like that, right? And I know what you mean. You start getting into that, like, oh, what's it at now? It's like, oh, it's up another 10, up another 20. And then I had to be like, Jesus Christ, smarten up. Okay, put the phone in another room for a bit and just fuck off from it, right?
Yeah.
And because you get into that, like, ooh, and it's like the slot machine, right? And you have to be able to be cognizant of like when you start catching yourself doing that and you go, all right, it's going into another room for a little bit. Let's just take it easy. All right. You know, but
part of my routine is I get up immediately and I make my bed. I have coffee. I have a dip, use the restroom, that kind of thing. And then I I plug my phone in and I go for a walk. And that's been I'm very strict in that when I'm here, anywhere I've lived. Like I've needed that motor physical movement to start my day. from an injury standpoint, like I've got a bunch of physical injuries that every soldier has, and people think that like rest is the answer to these physical. Oh, I don't want to overdo it. I need to make sure that, it hurts for me to walk. I was like, if it hurts for you to do something, you should do that thing. Mm-hmm. Because there's so many of these problems, these physical injuries is movement. And whether that's, rehab or whatever, but like I do my digital detoxes when I walk, and I've actually started going back on my routine recently where I've been taking my phone because of things like this episode coming up or some other opportunities that are knocking on the door and these kinds of things. Like I'm suffering a bit of like, I don't want to miss out on some of these FOMO,
Yeah.
But I need to make space for that. Mm-hmm. Like I need to make more space for me because I'm starting to get sucked into my how do I say that? Like I can say hand on heart, like I did not miss a single opportunity in 2024 that has presented itself to me yet. And that's good, but it's also taken a toll. Mm-hmm. And much like my poor work-life balance that I suffered when I was in the regiment, I'm starting to do that to myself again. Like I've never been busier since I've retired. It's not like I'd recreate all the time and lounge about and do this stuff. That always on the go, what's the next fucking thing? That still exists from a lifetime, from 16 to, 36, doing that in the military, always having a place to go and always needing to do something, whether that's social or work or whatever, or opportunity. I'm still doing it, man. I got to get a better grip on that myself. So I'll call you and help. I'll have you help me hold myself accountable for that stuff.
Hey, that's, you know what? Sometimes you need that teamwork and that other extra person. Just be like, hey, fuck you. No.
Dude, I need that. I have a handful of buddies like that. Yep. Those kind of people I surround myself with. That's
the ones I continue. The ones that are like, it's fine, whatever. Like, I got whatever. The ones that are like, what have you been doing lately, dipshit? Like, let's do a little more. Let's whatever. Yeah, like I respond to the same kind of things I responded to when I was like 16, 17, joining the military, right? Like, hey, you're not fucking important or special. Go do something, right? And when you get that ego out of the head and then you just go, you know what? There is nothing totally special, whatever, but let's just do something good, right? And just, like this. Do I think this is going to become like a Joe Rogan-esque, like, oh my God, it's so huge? Probably not. But am I going to find amazing people, get their stories out there and do stuff like that? Yeah. And that's kind of the joy, is it, right? Like something will come of this eventually, like merch, shirts, whatever. I've got ideas, but my biggest joy of doing this is just finding new people all the time, being like, this is an awesome person. I want to get this person out there to more people. So.
Yeah, no, I get that, man. And that's, I think like that is your contribution to a community that you find purpose. Okay. Yeah. And that's like, that's the thing. Like if you were a retired firefighter and I was a retired firefighter and we started the Firefighter Dude podcast, like that'd be the same thing. Like it's about like, I don't know, man, there's so much richness and value and quality in connecting people in this shared experience. Like one of my favorite things about Native American culture is that they were incredibly rich oral historical storytellers. Mm-hmm. And I play this gig in Elko, Oklahoma, or Elko, Nevada, which is called Cowboy Poetry Gathering. And these guys get together and it's these poetry recitals and it's original music and it's all these things. And it honors at a grassroots level, small, like what we're doing right now, like championing the stories of people, or at least their art. And some people, that art is connecting people. Some of it's creating, some of it's painting, music, whatever. Like this is art, man. Like getting people in a room to have real conversations. That's becoming a fucking art, which is wild. Since when is talking to two humans talking where other people listen? That hasn't been an art or important in a long fucking time, especially in the long form, like what we're doing. Mm-hmm. Someone wants to listen to like a 90-second, they want to take a 30-second clip of this or a 8-second clip where I said something really deep and not consume the rest of it. Like it's frontline. This is frontline shit that you're doing. It's pretty cool.
And it is. And it's an interesting thing how, like, Howard Stern made fun of it years ago, right? Podcasting will never get there, this, that, right? Like there was that famous thing on him making fun of like Rogan and all these people now. And it's like, it's huge. And the podcasting now is kind of taking over from traditional media because it's just an idiot here who's talking, right? Like, you know, I'm just the clown, right? And I find these cool people and stuff like that, but I don't take myself serious. Whereas with all these other kinds of forms of media, hello, I'm so and such, and I'm da 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 da, and they try and take themselves serious like this and that. It's like, well, no, like people can see that insincerity, right? Where they try and pretend like that. Where when you do these long form conversations like this, like you can't really hide much. I can't, like, you know, like those characters that you can hide in a short 20-minute little interview where, okay, I want the questions pre-done and this, that, and, you know, you can kind of think of what you're going to do and then you can sound all like that. Like people don't want that. Like they want the interviews where people stutter. Like I couldn't figure out some of the words to figure out my thought, but people appreciate that and the fact that it's not going to get cut out. It's not going to get edited. And they see the real you and they go, look at, he screws up and he fucks up a lot, but he can do it. I can do that. Maybe I have people, you know, whatever, right? Like this was not really going to be the plan. Like this was always a goal, but you know, again, it wasn't until, you know, VAC and stuff like that. And then originally they're going to have me working as a water technician underneath the streets and stuff. And the body wasn't responding well to that. And then they're like, oh, well, because I live near BCIT and Vancouver being kind of an entertainment area, that's the only reason why I got to do this program, right? So otherwise it would be like, too bad if I lived in Edmonton, no go. But
there are some podcasts out of Edmonton and like Calgary, that corridor of the Rockies that I haven't been on any. I got an ask for a couple of them and just honestly, like this one felt right to follow up on. I love doing these. Like I'm a little bit stressed about these kinds of things because, well, but also not really. Like one of the things you just said, the reason why people like long form where they stutter here and they're not edited and that kind of thing is because people crave in the ubiquitous of a curated social media or media experience, there is no authenticity. Mm-hmm. But when you guys are in my house right now, like you're in my damn home, like this is me. Like I've had like this much whiskey. And like, this is authentic me. Mm-hmm. And my experience, I've shared like doing drugs and being heartbroken and learning things and being bad. And when I failed selection and all these like kind of vulnerabilities that I talked about that like, yeah, my inner circle knows this stuff. So to share this with a group of complete strangers is like, well, one, that's kind of wild. Like, and I look at the success of Andy Stumpf and Sean Ryan, where he gets guys on his podcast. And I don't know the level of curation that takes place or the level of editing that takes place there. It's production, so I assume there's obviously some, especially Dallas's, because it had a bunch of it had to be redacted. Which is fucking wild to me that the Crown wanted. Like, but
I know, and even though what was it, CTV or CBC was there, taking fucking footage and stuff. It's like you had the press there at the hide that they were shooting at and stuff. Like again, but we know chain of command kind of stuff and certain thoughts that you're like, why did they even go after that? And for whatever reason, and it's dumb things that somebody at a certain level is like, well, I don't like that. And so they push it up, but you know, it's like, well, yeah, that was already broadcasted like the day or two after they got that shot or something. I can't quote exactly the time frame, but it wasn't far off from the record-breaking shot to when they had news people at that site.
Yeah. No, you're right, man. And like, and I my heart goes out to Dallas, man. He's a buddy. We played music together a number of times, and I remember when Dallas he was a green musician, and we were playing on a parachute course in California down behind, at like the fireplace just behind the hotel that we rented for this like 30-day parachute program. That was when I first met him. And And then we ended up later together on our advanced parachute course, like I think a year and a bit later, something like that. And same kind of thing again. We deployed at the same time. Like he's been a buddy. Like he's met my ex-girlfriends. Like, you know, I mean, he's like, we chat not fairly regularly, but I mean, he's got a show coming up in Longview, Alberta on 20th of November. He asked me to come and play. And I, you know, I mean, like that's dope as hell, man. But I look at what happened to him when he authentically shared his story from a government standpoint. And it's so heartbreaking, man. And he's such a good fucking dude, man. He's a good dude.
And again, just a stupid, policy, things like that, whatever, you know, pick an era, right? And the government's done something dumb with like its military and how it handles or treats it. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those things where you have a guy who, you know, didn't really want to get the vax and stuff like that, or wanted to wait and see or whatever, because everything was still new, and they just kind of kicked him out and goodbye, there you go. And all that skill set and everything like that, and just gone. I mean, the music communities, you know, gets to enjoy it now. So, hey, you know, what was the Canadian Forces loss is now everyone else's gain. So.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of the decisions that Dallas has made for his family at all. He's looking out for his family first, and I'm mad about what the CAF did to him. This is not my place to say any of that. I'm just pumping up my buddy, and I don't know how many people categorically agree with him and his lifestyle, but I know I do, and that's all I care about. He's my friend, so that's my take on it. I mean. We also we have another, there's an operator that's transitioned. The first one, man, like I was in the regiment at such like dope time. Like I was on course 4, and there was one female SF operator named Mel Pette, and she was a very dear friend. She taught my insert extract rappel master course, my special ops rappel master course, as an instructor. And that's where I first got to know, I was heard, man, there's a female operator. What, are you fucking kidding? And I got to meet her, and her and I became very close friends. And like, you know, I mean, she was so tough, dude. She beat cancer like 3 times till it took her, man. And yeah, no, absolutely, man. She was like a freaking merit. She was a cyclist. She was big into cycling, loved surfing, had property in California. Really into that stuff. We were really close friends. Like the way I'd be close with any of the other dude operators. And I will tell you, and this is a quote from another operator named Stoyles, that he said, when I asked about her, when I was a brand new guy, because Stoyles was kind of my mentor when I first showed up. He covered my ass out at one particular incident where we were late for something. But he said, she's just as hard as any dude, bro. And I was like, really? And he was right. He was dead on with all that. Yeah, she was a legend for sure. And I look at the way that we're not celebrating that. I don't know, man. It's just so like it pains me. Here's one, man. Britain, Australia, New Zealand, all these Commonwealth countries that fought in the GWAT. Every one of them have multiple victories.
Yep, I knew exactly what you were going to get at as soon as you started doing that. I know, and I've got a shirt, a VC for Jess, right? Like, you know, there's so many, I mean, fucking bullshit with some of that stuff where, again, right? Like there's guys and gals who put themselves in some real serious situations, and we didn't do anything for them, or it was just this laziness, or now it's like, oh, well, the time is too far gone now that this information's come out that, you know, he really did do, like, he was holding that spot on his own, right?
Which is like, that's also a bullshit excuse, man, because we posthumously awarded all kinds of VCs after World War II, long after these guys were and Korea. Like, there's no, it's been too long bullshit. Like, it's just, I don't know, man. I don't want to shit talk the CAF. I had a great go when I was in there, dude, but I will say that I'm embarrassed of the leadership, especially at the time right around I was leaving.
Yeah.
Because for all the CAF ethos stuff that they pumped into us that, you know, we fought and lived and died by, they did not embody that as leaders better than, like, I, as a master corporal, should have not held an ethos candle flame to that of the general. but a lot of us did, where we were generals like selling secrets to China, all this. Anyway, you know the story, right? We all lived it. We were there. But the fact that they don't have in my opinion, they don't have the means or the wherewithal. I don't know what it is, man. But the fact that people that have power to honor men that are great, that did things in battle that those men sent them to do, is that's heartbreaking, man.
It is. And then they wonder why, retention rates or certain other things. It's like, yeah, because these people gave you their everything, their sanity, their bodies. And then once it's done, it's like, go, that's fine. Be gone. And then they're like, our recruiting numbers are down, or this or that. And it's like, well, yeah, like people can look and see what kind of money's getting put into it. How are they getting treated? Look at the housing problem. I mean, that was a problem way back when I joined in 01. I don't think it's gotten any better, right? Like there's so many of these problems and stuff like that they're simple, right? Like how long it takes for certain equipment to happen and go through. Meanwhile, we can give other countries money for their military procurement stuff, but no, we got to keep dealing with all that red tape and everything. And nope, the tanks are going to keep falling apart, and we'll take apart these tanks to keep these tanks going, or our Air Force and some of the jets and stuff. Like
that's yeah. I mean, it's a cultural problem in the country. It's not necessarily that extends beyond that of the military.
And I think it's because we don't tell enough of the stories of those that serve, that the population just doesn't care when they go, hey, we're going to cut the defense spending budget by X amount, and we're going to do this and that. And people go, okay, well, defense spending, whatever, right? And they don't understand what that means. If, okay, you keep cutting now, and just like when Afghanistan happened, the CF had to buy a lot of stuff last minute, being like, oh, wait, we let all these abilities and stuff kind of atrophy. Oh, yeah. Let's start. Here's the credit card. Buy it all right now. Hey, remember those Chinooks that we sold? See if we can buy some back, because we're definitely going to need helicopters. Like, that's going to be an asset we need. Like, there's so much of that, like the politicians, and Canada's the worst for it. Like, every government will cut defense spending.
Oh, yeah.
But, I mean, the problem with that is then when the time comes to need it, we're years behind that being able to do it, because we have to build all those skill sets back up. So
yeah, I don't disagree. The funniest one that I recall, for at least my time in the CAF, I'm having a beer, is when we had to buy HIP helicopters to transport cancer off the ground. It's like wild. Like, we don't have an appropriate helicopter to lift 6 dudes and move them around Afghanistan, so we had to go buy old, beat-up Russian ones from the 80s. Like, but for one, that's cool. But like, wouldn't it be dope if we had these already? But yeah. Anyway, I don't want to like, and this is like hand on heart, man. Like, once again, one of the things that I suffer from is the thought that I would paint. So I don't want to paint the regiment in a bad light. I was an honorable member of the CAF, man, and they took care of me. They did. And so even though I'm out, I still defend everything that it gave me and what it did for me. Mm-hmm. And, to the Canadian Armed Forces, I enjoyed my time there. And they took good care of me, and they gave me lots of cool opportunities. So, yeah. And I left, and I had every opportunity to get better and do better. And I was just, in my opinion, like, one, I didn't work hard enough to stay. And 2, maybe I won't say I was too far gone, because I don't think anybody is ever too far gone. But I sure was not. I was no longer an asset when it was my. I mean, I did fucking almost 20 years, man. Like, gosh, I've got a buddy down here who actually where I live is wild. You could field an entire company of retired special operations and agency dudes in Madison County, Montana. It's fucking crazy. And like, nice. But none of them sit around we go and we enjoy ourselves socially, but it's not about sitting around telling army stories or bitching about the government. We all talk about, like, hey, you want to go on let's go catch a brown trout next week. Like, fuck yeah, let's do that. Hey man, it's elk season. You want to come out for opener? Like, I'm in, bro. Like, hey, do you want to go do some day ride cowboy work, or let's just saddle the ponies and go for like a pleasure ride up the mountain and like with a 6-pack and split it and talk about girls or whatever, right? Like just normal dude bro shit. And that is the community that I have here. And that's very different from the vet community that I enjoyed in Canada, because here, so Montana's got like one of the, if not the highest concentration of vets, and they only got one base. It's way up north and it's an Air Force base. Most of the guys that live here come here because it's away from everything else. And that doesn't exist in Canada. Guys move to like the four corners of like BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and they're hours and hours away from the next vet they ever served with or vet in uniform. And they stay connected via these kinds of means. And it's kind of sad. And when I came down here and I saw this, I was like, I want to be a part of this. Much like when I saw those JTF2 guys when I was a new guy, I was like, this is a community I want to be in. And that's why I hang my hat here. And it has been one of the single richest experiences of my life. I can't say enough about how supportive this community's been to an actual outsider. Like it's funny. Like, I'm not even from America, and I drive around with my non-American plates on my truck. But at least I'm not from California, because they really don't like those people. Especially after Yellowstone came out, everybody flocked to Montana. But like I said, man, I can't preach enough about the community stuff, and it's you're right. I kind of don't want to drive this in the direction of like bitching about the calf, because I can easily go down that rabbit hole and that'll wreck my night. I just choose to, much like former failed relationships or jobs that I wasn't suitable for, I just choose to remember the good times and what I got to bring to the table when I was at my best, and what they gave me from an opportunity standpoint. So, yeah. And I learned that actually from Joe Rogan. he talks about that a lot too. He's like, your mental health will be better if you look at your experiences that way. Remember the good times. And that's one of, like I said, we almost divulged there into one of the problems that I feel that Canadian vets have, which is where we get fat and we sit around, we don't do shit, and we bitch on the internet. And I don't want to do that.
And I think just the fact of you even getting it out there, right? Like, it's not bitching so much. Some of these things are like the problems or whatever that it has, but sometimes just even getting that out to light, right? Like, little things will, little squeaks will start changing stuff, right? And the more people I start talking to and getting more veteran stories out there of like, okay, how was your experience? Because some guys have had it great. Like, my case managers have been awesome. My education coordinator, amazing. Have I had problems with the bureaucracy? Absolutely, right? But I mean, I believe in highlighting like the amazing people that have helped me out and stuff like that. Sure. And there's times that, like, again, it's the system, and it's like anything government, right? It's not going to be fast. And unfortunately, some people's problems, they need quick solutions, and they can't be the ones that fall through the cracks and stuff like that. But I mean, like any system, if it has its problems, you can fix it. There can be a new ombudsman or, Minister of Veterans Affairs or anything like that, or Prime Minister, new one who goes, you know what, we're going to change this, whatever happening. And then it starts to change. Yeah. So, yeah.
I just see two things there that I kind of wanted to highlight on. One was the VA system. So actually there's a guy named Aaron Dale, and Aaron he was an operator, and then he transitioned. I think, don't quote me, but he worked, I think, for the Toronto Police Service, TPS. And he started and like brought this program into the house of it's a program where street level of like levels of law enforcement and how they deal with veteran social issues when it may be entering in the realm of criminal. Because when you see a bum, and not a bum, but when you see a guy, when a cop arrives to a house and there's a veteran in there, the protocol for the dealing with that person who's allegedly done something has been the same whether that guy was a veteran or non-veteran. So he identified the requirement for police officers to address these citizens differently. And he's had a lot of great success with the way that the police veteran interactions take place. And he said something, and I'm quoting him on this, and he can write me a nasty gram if I jack the quote up, but he says, I don't care what you say, man. Veterans Affairs Canada is the most effective and best social system that our government has. And that's a big order. There's a lot of people that'll disagree with that. But he's actually, in my experience, he's not that wrong. Like, it is a system that needs to be learned to navigate. There are people out there that can help you with it. There is time you need to spend on the phone with these people. There's letters you need to write. There's forms you need to fill out. Yes, but there is access to all kinds of stuff if you know how to do it. And if you don't, there's someone you can call. They actually give you a person that helps you, almost like a lawyer advocates for your navigation of the legal system. They will help you navigate these strange bureaucratic functions. And yeah, they take time. What doesn't take time? Stuff in SpaceX doesn't take time because Elon gutted his staff. Like, that's one. And the other one, I forget what you mentioned now. I kind of went on a rant there. Sorry.
That's fine.
But yeah, dude, it's I've had all kinds of help. I've got more help than I can handle. Actually, I've had more help than I almost needed. They tried to overhelp me, which was, in my opinion, somewhat disabling. Because like, hey, look, man, like I can do stuff. Like I want to go and do stuff. They're like, well, there's elements of that system. They're like, but if you're too successful, they'll take away a bunch of money. And if you're under successful, you just get a bunch of money, which incentivizes you not to have that motivation to do stuff. And that stuff could be an online business. I could learn to be a life coach or I don't know, whatever you want to do. But there is a huge incentive, like a very considerable financial incentive to be useless and jacked up. Yeah. So in my time in the States, I've come to use the term jacked up, which is very different down here. To be jacked up means you're messed up, but to get jacked up in Canada means like you get jacked up. Like it's really
our term's a little bit different. Yeah. He was jacked up. Oh.
It was like, yeah, Wilson was jacked up the other day. It's like, that means he got in trouble. It's like, no, it means he made a mistake. Yeah, exactly. So, or he was a mess that day, kind of thing. So I use that term not so interchangeably here. I'm using in predominantly the American use of it. And yeah, I shouldn't probably say this because it might cause me problems, but I'm going to say it anyway. But I want to stay in Montana. I have to leave here obviously because I just come down on visitor's visa, and I don't work down here. I don't have a SIN number. I don't have a green card. I don't make any money when I'm here. I get to do fun shit with my friends. That is actual physical work. Like it's work. Like I sweat when I do it, but I don't get paid. I've never been paid down here. And, but I'd like to pay my taxes here. I love Montana. I want to die in these hills. And there's a couple ways to go about doing that. But it's really hard. Like I can't ethically collect, my vac stuff and work down here. I can't do that. Like I can't. Like one, it's just plain. It's not legal, and two, like I can't ethically and morally do that. It's tough, but it doesn't preclude me from coming down to visit. It doesn't preclude me from like leasing a place here. That's fine. I'm allowed to lease a place. I can own a place down here if I want, but I just can't stay as long as I want. And so got a lawyer on retainer that's helping me how to figure out how to do that. But as an unskilled 40-year-old white male, I don't have access to that. Now there are all kinds of immigrants coming into this country that are not skilled and they're younger and they don't have any assets or a place to live or a means to fucking support themselves. And they're getting a cell phone and a check to go make a life for themselves in New Mexico, which is kind of bugs me a bit. But either way.
Yeah, and I mean, it is what it is with those goofy things and stuff like that. And again, one administration's in charge, and everything handles one way. An election happens, another administration gets in, and everything kind of changes in how the groove and the dance went before. But definitely, if you ever become permanent resident down there, the show will have to take a visit and see what cowboying's really like.
Actually, man, one of the things that I've kind of started soft establishing, or at least socializing and testing the waters on, is the Warfighter Cowboy Unit ought to cover both borders, or the border. There's only one border. Both countries, one border. And we do a vets only event in the fall where we go up and we gather cows and we enjoy fellowship and that kind of thing. It was actually surprisingly well attended this year because it's not like you need 100 guys to go and do these things. You just need like You need like a dozen. You need like 6. Or you need 6 one week and 6 another week to go and help on these big range rides and stuff like that. And it's kind of wild. Like, you offload your trailer with your buddies in the morning, and then you like tip your hat to your bro. And one of our most ardent supporters is a guy named JW Phillips, who he and his wife, he was a MARSOC guy, Marine Special Operations Command. And then he voluntarily retired and then started chasing down the homesteading kind of thing. And so he started a ranch from scratch, and he learned, he attacked this particular challenge with the same kind of audacity that any operator would attack a target. And he has gone so far in 4 years. And I'd like to, like, I'll give you a bunch of guys I want to shout out, like, kind of at the end of.
Start shouting out dudes and organizations right now. Yeah, go for it.
And we'll put their IG shit, because like he's been a huge influence and a huge inspiration and a real mentor to me too, man. And like I said, all I did was stand the thing up, and then he took the reins on one of it, and off we went. And he organized this dope ass like cowboy roundup. The other side we want to do is a more family oriented one, which is like that community thing that I'm passionate about. And that's going to be, obviously, brandings take place in the spring, and then it'll be like families showing up with their campers, and there'll be, we're going to invite media to that one, that kind of thing. So the other one's going to be more closed, more like from a guy fellowship dude, like private hard work fellowship standpoint. And then the other one will be a little bit more overt, if you will. That's my intent anyway. We have the means right now to do it. Guys are all self-sustained. Like, there's no money that we make in this. It's just literally getting together these guys that are unabashedly themselves and want to be a part of that culture after transitioning out of the military. And it's my dream someday to have that, like, maybe a national level recognition in some form. I think it'd be cool to be on the cover to have the guys on the cover of Western Horseman. That's my personal, like, the hill I want to die on, is like, if I can get a cover of Western Horseman magazine, like a cool silhouette. You remember like the cool silhouette pictures of like a bunch of Rangers with like their guns up, guy with the Carl Gustav or whatever, and it's like silhouette, you can't see who it is. Mm-hmm. But basically that with like a bunch of veteran cowboys. That's kind of like I had a dream. It's kind of hokey, but I had a dream about that. I was like, that's not a bad goal.
That's an awesome goal.
And the why is not because I want to be on the cover of a magazine, or I don't even need to be it'll be anonymous, but because that will show me that there's enough of us in this community that have the space to honor and organize to support each other, like spiritually, professionally, like, and from a community standpoint, that it's an entity. That means it's got a life of its own, and people recognize it, and it'll go off. I think. I don't know, but yeah.
But, yeah, that sounds awesome. And you know what? It'll take a couple of years, but that will happen. You're going to be on that cover. You're going to be on a bunch of different newspapers, things like that, because once it starts to get going and once that starts to kick off, it is crazy. Like, I mean, when I started this, I never thought like the first person I would interview would be a tier 1 operator that I had no idea about. I didn't know Sean. I didn't know Randy. Didn't know you, right? But it's that fun thing of just throwing it out there and being like, hey, I'd love to interview you. Or with you coming up and talking to me and stuff like that. It's like, after I start following you and be like, do you want to get interviewed? I will interview you. Right. And it's that fun thing of just finding a community, and I have no idea where it's going to go or the cool stuff that can happen of it. But eventually, like, I would love to get like a little RV, convert it to be like a studio, and then, turn into a sleep area, drive down to areas where there's, something like you're going to do, or anything else that another veteran community is going to do, and get in there and interview and go have that kind of fun and get right in there and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, the big thing for the show is eventually enough of the Zoom talk and actually be in a room with that person, because there's a different energy in something that happens with that.
Yes. There was a guy that came down to Heroes and Horse a couple years ago, man. He runs one called the Veterans Project, and he traveled the country in America doing exactly what you described in an RV. And I sat with him in his RV, and we had a long chat. And it was great. That was one of maybe the first podcasts I did here in the States. and it was really cool. It was really cool. It's just, and obviously the things I talked about. I also got interviewed by a British guy one time that wanted to talk about like infantry stuff, and it was a fun. I was driving across Canada, and I did it in my truck in Thunder Bay, and it was not the setup to do it, but it was just like, hey, I want to do this. Let's go. And I was like, okay, we'll make it happen. And in my buddy's driveway attached to his Wi-Fi for like 3 hours. It was wild. But like that's the thing, that's the dream, right? Like installing your and that's where my Forrest Gumpness comes in, is I find myself in rooms with people that I want to do things like this with. And I don't know how that happened. I also don't know how I started looking like Dog the Bounty Hunter all of a sudden.
I would say like a Travis Tritt.
Oh my God. I don't know. He's okay. But I keep like fucking messing with I've never done a video one. And so like, I'm kind of, I still have like, I don't think I've fully grown into the long hair thing yet. I don't know, but yeah. Yeah, the another guy that he became a dope mentor and a good buddy of mine, and he runs a non-prof and a for-prof where I got involved in a few years ago before I met him. I think I shouted him out a little bit earlier on, but he was a retired long tab dude, and I've got an immense amount of respect for, and how do I say this? Like a lot of passion for the community by bringing to light issues of the murdering and missing Indigenous women's and persons population. Coming from a Native American background myself as a Métis, and he's doing all kinds of dope stuff with that. And his program, relocate women that are disenfranchised on ranches, or even just people that are interested in getting a new life, and gives them like some ranch training over the course of the summer with some guest instructors and stuff like that. And it's really dope. And then you can get them some job placements on ranches and whatnot around. And we actually got to do a couple, networking opportunities over the border, because that's a huge it's a huge problem here in the States, but it's a huge, huge problem in Canada. Like I've driven Highway 97 BC, where that's the Highway of Tears, Highway 97 BC, Highway of Tears. And I drove it a couple of years ago to Alaska with a Native American girl who worked for the Ktunaxa Nation, kind of based out of Cranbrook, BC. And it was an incredibly emotional experience for both of us based on that particular territory, and how, there's red dresses lining the whole darn highway from friggin', Dawson Creek to Dawson City, Yukon. Which is like, just absolutely wild. And he's doing really good stuff too, man. And he's another ardent supporter of the warfighter cowboy thing, man. He's contributed vastly to that with his presence and those kinds of things, man. He's a great guy. His name is Jeremiah Blackbeard. And he's a friend. He's my friend. And I'm just enamored by, like, I'm sitting on this thing, like, talk. I'm not shouting out my friends. I'm just like proud to be in a circle with these men. Because they have invited me into this veteran community in America. This is going to sound kind of heartbreaking, man. I feel more a part of the veteran community here in America as a Canadian than I feel in Canada, writ large, 100 times over. They just do it, like, they're just better. Like, I don't say better. It's just a richer, more intentional community here. And we don't have it there. Like, I've got my buddies up there, but like, they've never been all in the same room. And I've had all my buddies in the same room here several times a year since I've been. They get in their truck and they will drive 10 hours to just visit with you. They don't do that in Canada. Like, vets in Canada don't do that. Like, they don't. Like, and I don't know why. I don't know why that is.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I've always kind of wondered that too and stuff like that. But I think it's also, there's so many more stories with Americans and the service members, right? Where, again, say it again, in Canada, it's only during this time period before Remembrance Day where, the week of remembrance and this and that, and look at Vimy Ridge and these things, right? Like, for us, it's just during that pre-Remembrance Day stuff, but we don't really recognize all these things throughout the year, right? Like, there's not a big things on the Patricias and the RCR and the Van Deus and stuff all the time. But you know, in the States, you're always hearing, you know, documentaries and stories about the 101st, the 82nd, you know, whether it's SF Green Berets, SEALs, it doesn't matter, right? Like there's a real pride in like, you know, the 1st Division or, you know, an armored regiment and stuff like that, where we just don't, we don't do that in Canada. And it shows kind of within the veteran population where when you get out, there's not really anywhere for you to go and feel like you're part of a big community. I mean, you can join a Legion or, you know, find a smaller kind of organization that maybe veterans have started, but you're not really getting that same mentality that is in the States.
Yeah. I think there used to be that. Like, do you remember this old regular force regiment called the Guards? Mm-hmm. It wouldn't be around, but are you familiar with like the name and the title?
Yep, the Guards.
Both my grandpas actually were Guards, and like one of them is dead now, but my other grandpa is still around, and they've been having Guard reunions for decades. Like I don't even know like if they even have Canadian Airborne Regiment reunions anymore. It's just this thing where people just stop making an effort, where they would rather live their legacy alone than honor the community that gave them that legacy. Like, if that sounds weird, and this has just been in like my experience a little bit, is an airborne, like, and I'm not saying like a guy, not airborne or guard guy or a Black Watch guy, but they would rather just kind of be that guy in their existing kind of small community of their town than make the effort to go and visit with those guys. Like it's nuts. Like, I mean, having said that, like CSOR has had a couple get-togethers and I don't go to those. I mean, like, so shame on me. I shouldn't. They have that Operation Pegasus on Vancouver Island up in like Campbell River. Have you heard of this?
Yeah, actually, I was going to do it this summer, but then I had an injury flare up. So next summer, I'm planning on doing that.
Like, there's like a dozen dudes that I served with that go out to that. And I don't know why I don't get in my truck and go. Like, why is that not important enough to me to go be a part of that? But I will get in my truck and drive to southern Denver to go hang out with a bunch of guys who I never served with that I'm friends with now, who were also veterans. So I don't know why. I don't know. Like, maybe I should probably do some thinking on that. Like, why is it that I'm less into that? Like, having said that, like, I'm on my way to Canada in like a week. I'm going up to, I've got a buddy of mine. He's in the service battalion in Edmonton, and him and I were on selection together. We served together. We were operators. He had some family things, so he left the regiment and ended up staying in the West for career purposes and other things. And he and I have had a tradition where every year that we were in the area, whether it was Ottawa or Edmonton, we go to the PBR professional bull riding semifinals, like the Canadian national finals, but the semifinals, like they go to Vegas after that. It's a big rodeo. It's one of the biggest rodeos in Canada after the Stampede. And we go every year. Every year we're there. Every year we're around. Like, it's gonna take me 15 hours to drive there, but I'm going. Like, I'll go there to visit him for a weekend, you know, and then I'm sticking around for a couple of days to do November 11 celebrations in the area, because Canada does take November 11 much more seriously, and they honor their Veteran Memorial Day that day more than America does. But the other 364 days a year, it's better to be a veteran here. Yeah.
Well, if you ever decide to go to Campbell River and jump out with Operation Pegasus jump, you can watch a cherry jump out of the plane for a first time.
Oh, I'm sure there'll be lots of cherries. The other, like, I stopped counting my jumps at about 280 something. And after I did, like, so when one of the things they made me do, like, they offered, and by made, I was made to do it. It's not like I could have turned it down. You want to be a special forces guy? Of course you're going to sign up for parachute training. But in between my two selections, they sent me to basic para as a tan hat, like non-operator qualified. Yeah, no, I don't think I wasn't operator qualified. But But I wasn't operator qualified, but they gave me my tan beret before because I was a supporter in the unit, and supporters get the same color hat, but I didn't have the operator hat badge. And so I went down there with 4 dudes. And of course, you can imagine the hell that you got from the staff at the jump school when you're a non-operator qualified supporter going on selection again on basic para. It was wild. It was good. I had a great time because I was in awesome shape at the time, and I had a lot of fun. But after that, man, I started getting a bunch of injuries. Like I said, man, my first 250 jumps went awesome. And then after that, something jacked up happened every other jump to the point where I was like, do I really want to do this anymore? Like, this is like getting like, come on. You know what I mean? Like, it was getting kind of fucked up. And so, I wouldn't mind. I haven't jumped since. One of the things that broke my heart, man, because I was put on medical category for mental health, I wasn't allowed to handle firearms or parachute anymore. When I was on my way out of the military for like my last 2 years there at the regiment. I rode I never went to a transition center. I just went directly out of the Army from the regiment, despite being a medical retirement. But I wasn't allowed to shoot or jump, which really kind of like, why the hell would you be an operator if you can't want a gun and jump at an airplane? Right? And this is going to maybe I won't get me in trouble. I'm not going to say who let me do it, but I did all that stuff anyway. But because I had good bosses and I lied. And because that was part of who I was, man. It was part of the pack. I got to be on the team again. But I did get to do one last actual like kind of jump with my friends. And I'm kind of bummed about that. But I'm not too bummed, but I'm kind of bummed. And there was actually an incident too where I was running a pistol program for the incoming supporters to the command. And at one point they took my guns away and I had to continue training in pistol, but they gave me a blue gun to teach pistol to supporters, which was incredibly embarrassing. But yeah, I get you, man. The Operation Pegasus thing would be pretty cool, man. I see a bunch of guys, like, they do a good documentary about it too. Like, it's nice to see the old faces and stuff, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of faces and stuff like that you can see and everything, and it's like it looks cool, right? Like because my injury happened so early on and stuff like that, and breaking your back and then deciding to do your basic jump course isn't usually a smart thing to do. So, but now that I can go canopy and steering and all that stuff like that, I think it'd be a little bit easier than just being a human lawn dart to the earth. Yeah,
man, it's no joke. Like, those crappy old like 1940s parachutes, like you land hard, dude. Like, it knocks the wind out of you every time, and if you don't stick the landing, you can get really hurt. And like, yeah, there's a reason they make you run a lot on jump course, because you need to have bone density and muscular legs to not. Having said that, though, like, we look at the same type of parachute they jumped in World War II is more or less the same design and canopy square footage they jump today in basic para. But the soldiers they were running back then, those guys were like 140 to 160 pounds. Now the average soldier is significantly more dense in bone, and they just fall faster. We also jump with more gear. Mm-hmm. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're hitting the ground way harder than our World War II forefathers did. And like, and they got hurt. You know what I'm saying? Like tree landings in Normandy at the mass exit, like the morning before D-Day. Like, God, imagine that. Like, imagine those guys. Like, that's gnar. Mm-hmm. Like, that's some gnarly shit.
yeah, that whole. Yeah, just the Germans flooded the field. You got the forest and the trees, the flak and everything. Like, yeah, those were some crazy experiences that some of them went through with D-Day jumps and everything. And
well, here, guys, like, I don't forgive my poor recollection of the history, but I don't know how many glider paratroopers Canada had, but I know Britain and America had a lot. And I know there were mixed chalks of both, like Red Devils, Canadians, and then like 82nd 101st guys. But like, I can't imagine like being in a glider, because I don't think the glider guys actually wore chutes. I think they were just meant to land.
I don't think they did either. I can't remember off the top of my head though, if not one single ever did, or if, you know, some, depending on the country or whatever. But yeah, I think that was just, you get towed and then that's it. Just
and your glider, at least if you're in a Buffalo or whatever they were jumping, and it caught on fire, so you had a standing chance because you were wearing a parachute, you could hook up and hop out. But with a glider, if your towing aircraft gets smoked, it tows you into the ground. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what? Like, you know, it just would have been crazy. I had the privilege, after doing really good on my basic infantry course when I was a private, to go and do 11 days of battlefield tours in Belgium, Holland, Normandy, France, and Germany. And I got to go to like Pegasus Bridge and see all these cool places. And to stand on the hollow ground of Ypres or Vimy, or, you know, some of the drop zones from Market Garden. Like, I wasn't a paratrooper at the time. For me to go back and visit those places like the drop zones, I would probably get really emotional. Like, I visited the drop zone in California where I got a traumatic brain injury, man. And me and another guy, he's a tier 1 sniper named Pascal, who's in my inner circle, great guy. We had a bonfire out there one night, and he shared some stuff about himself to me, about how that place changed his career as well. And I still have a Copenhagen tin of dirt from that drop zone because it changed my life there. Like, I got injured badly there in my brain, and after an absolute wreck of a fucking parachute jump. And I still keep that dip tin as a reminder that, hey, I beat you. So my affliction, my airborne paratrooper like connection to drop zones is huge. And to stand on the ones in Europe where, you know, 16-year-old boys jumped out of here and rained hell on the Nazis, literally. Like, that's huge, man, in warrior culture in today's modern military Western society. And I think that's dope as fuck. And another huge connection to that too, man, is one of my good buddies is Willie from Willie's Distillery in Annis, Montana. I don't know if you follow Willie's Distillery.
I think I just started following them after I started following you. I started finding a couple interesting people and organizations.
So Willie's a bit of a legend, man. Like, Willie was a ranger out in Savannah, out in the East Coast. I think it's Savannah, Georgia. And when he retired from there, he did his time in the Rangers. And like 5 days later, he drove across the country and he's in college in Missoula, Montana. So he went from being like in a ranger platoon to being in college within like a very short period of time. And you got to think about the culture shock that takes place from when these guys in your ranger platoon know everything about, right? They can pick you naked from the back out of a lineup because they've seen you in the shower so many times. Like, just, and that's not weird, but it's just like, that's how well these guys know you, right? And then you go to college, and Missoula is a very liberal kind of hip street kind of town. And then he goes to the hot shot, like smoke jumpers. So he's a smoke jumping firefighter. And then he joins the National Guard Special Forces because he stayed in the Guard after he retired full service from active duty. And then he meets Robin, and then he starts this thing. And he has a commemorative whiskey called the Devil's Brigade. And the Devil's Brigade in 1943 was a joint Canadian and U.S. Special Forces unit that was recruited specifically from guys like loggers and guides, trappers and cowboys and mountain men and these kinds of types, these hard-nosed dudes, and that were both from the American and the Canadian side. That their base where they shipped them all to train and kind of gel as a unit was in Helena, Montana, about 2 hours away from here in Fort Henry Harrison. They've got a great museum and all this other stuff. And I've been there a number of times. I've done a couple tours with some buddies and that have come down and anyway. And their bourbon or their blended whiskey, Devil's Brigade. I should have bought a bottle for this podcast to shot them, but I didn't. And his blend is, because the unit was 60% American, 40% Canadian. It's a blend of 60% American bourbon and 40% Canadian rye. The fighting knife that they got issued for this was made by Case Company out of Chicago, Illinois, and it was the V42 fighting dagger, which looks like the SAS, like Fairbairn Sykes. And it's dope as heck. I bought one, a knockoff, when I first became an operator, and I painted it up all cool like my gun, and I rocked that V42 fighting dagger, knockoff, but still the same style, on my rig for 4 combat tours as a new guy, because CSOR and First Special Forces Group still hold the battle honors that the Black Devils, Devil's Brigade, got in World War II. And because of that V42 dagger, they made that alcohol 42% alcohol by volume. And each batch is dedicated to a horseman, like a guy, like an old timer that fought without outfit. And in 12, doesn't matter. I did really good on a course, and they sent me over with a group of guys from the regiment to go visit the battlefields that they fought on in Italy, including Monte la Defensa, which was this gnarly mountain that was like sloped on one side and then sheer cliff on the other. So the Nazis pointed their guns down on the most likely avenue of Allied approach. And so the Devil's Brigade were like, well, we'll go up the cliff. And so they technically assaulted this with and by technical assault, I mean like old cotton ropes, no MVGs, old school mountaineering shit. And they climbed this thing, and they had found after when they had done the battle damage assessment that most of these Nazis ended up not with bullet holes, but with slit throats, because they got these guys in their beds, because they got them, you know what I mean? They were just like Tommy Prince, one of the Victoria Cross winners from Canada, was a full blood Native American. And he was a sniper for the force. And they called it the Force, the First Special Service Force, the Forceman. And we proudly rock the lineage of that outfit. And like I draw a huge connection to that. And part of that, which is one of the reasons why I'm so welcome, I feel welcome and I'm treated with welcome here in this community, is because of my lineage to the Canadian soft community, the CanSoft world, and the soft world that exists in Montana. And I actually, that relation and that reputation is something that I hold deadly serious. And I'm an active and proud, reliable member of that community. And that means a lot to me. And I wish that something like that existed up north. Like, I really wish it did. Like, it'd be like if everybody that was an SF dude moved to like Jasper, Alberta. And we just had this dope community of guys that used to serve together, and we would go hunt and fish and ride horses and all that stuff. But it doesn't exist in Canada. But it exists here, and I feel a part of it. I'm treated a part of it, and I behave a part of it, and I've been welcomed. And it's absolutely precious. It's probably the most precious relationship that I own.
Yeah. No, and that's awesome. I mean, I love that the whole liquor thing too, with the 60-40, 42%. Like, that's awesome stuff. But, you know, hopefully maybe in the future, something like that will happen where, you know, a bunch of vets in Canada decide, hey, let's start trying to build something. And then from that, maybe down the line, you know, it kind of improves, and there is a little bit more of that community that Canadian soldiers can rely on.
Yeah, they have a cool community in Sula, Montana, where a veteran bomber pilot, I think it was, or the brother of a bomber pilot who died, bought a huge tract of land where if you're a vet, you can lease. You have to build on the property. And once you build it, you own it, and you can sell it back to the owner, but you can live on the land for free. It's basically like the footprint of a hippie commune, but it's better, and it's a closed community. I think if there was going to be a place in Canada where that or something like it could exist, it would be in British Columbia, just because of the mountains and the capacity to recreate and that kind of thing. It's like BC is an expensive place to live, as you probably well know. But I think if it would, like, we had a couple of vets on the island. Actually, you'd be surprised. There's a shit ton of SF vets on the island. And a bunch of posers too, man. Like a bunch of like fake. It's actually wild. There was a dude in what was it? It's across from. You got to get on the ferry in Comox, and it's on the mainland. Rupert? No,
I don't really know the island too much. I'm more of a mainland guy.
Oh man! So there's a community that you can't access from like Vancouver, Okanagan. You need to, if you want to go there, you got to get on a boat, go to the island, and then drive to Comox, get on another boat, and then go up to the mainland coast again by the coastal mountains.
Yeah, Robert, I think you are right. I think that is it, where it's like you take a boat, go on the island, and then take another boat, and you can't. There's no road access from like Vancouver or whatever. Exactly,
yeah. But there's a couple guys who it popped up on because we have actually, like, I don't know, this word to warning to anybody that watches this is not an SF guy. Like, if you're in a bar and you say that you're an SF dude in Canada or a soft guy or a JTF2, whatever, someone that you tell that to probably knows someone that was, and we'll find out. Like, we will find. We always did. Like our like operator only board, like team, like group chat has got a couple hundred guys, both active duty and retired. And between all of us, we know everybody that's ever served in the regiment. Period. Full stop. You will not squeak between the cracks. We've had guys that like did a day and a half on selection and then said they were an operator for 10 years when they applied to like the Durham police force and stuff like this. Like they get it. They get outed hard. You can't fake, because the Kansas is such a small community. You can't fake that you were there. You can't. I'm sorry, you can't. And I mean, I don't know, it just sound gay, but like a lot of fanboys watch Kansas style podcasts. Like it's a fact. And I get a bunch of hate mail from these kinds of things. I get a bunch of like, hey man, you're cool. Like follow me on Instagram, like that kind of thing. But I also get some stuff where guys like use these experiences where some guy in a year from now will tell a story I told on this in a bar and say that it was his story. The guy you're telling that to probably knows someone who knows one of us, and it will pop up and it'll come out 100%. Stolen valor in Canada is like a thing. And we had a couple instances, not Campbell River. Gosh. It's not Rupert. Anyway, doesn't matter the town. But there was a handful of guys that were telling girls in bars and stuff they were SF guys. And they were in 3R Sarah Para Company or something like that. And we knew them. Like, we knew the guys. Like, and they got outed by like a signaler from 427, the Special Operations Aviation Squadron, who went over there with his wife to go dirt bike for a weekend and found these guys in a tavern or something afterwards. And they were telling everybody they were SF. And I was like, kind of like, dude, why you gotta lie? Why can't you just own it? I don't know. But
yeah, I don't get, especially like if you get caught lying. I mean, the States and stuff like that, like there's the charges and, you know, criminal stuff that can happen with it. But you just seem like an asshole.
Right. I mean, and I try to have empathy for people like this. I really do. I really, really do. Because, you know, I mean, I come from a place where I've got a checkered past and I've done some cool stuff, and then I messed my life up and then I got it together again. And I've made a lot of mistakes. I have too, man. And I get it. But like these things always come out. And if you're in a space, like I was in a treatment center 2 years ago for a PTSD thing. And, for PTSD diagnosis, that VA wanted me to go to this treatment center. And honestly, I kind of wanted to go too, man. I wanted to work on myself. And there was a couple of guys in this treatment center who didn't know my background. And they were in there talking about all the cool operations they went on with like JTF2 and all this shit. And I was like, oh yeah, cool, man. Man, that must have been really neat. So when did you get in? And they were like, oh man, you know, I mean, we can't talk too much about it. And I was like, oh, really? You know what I mean? And I kind of let it play out for a little while. And then it eventually, like, I called the guy on it. Like, I was like, dude, I was in the command for 14 years, and I know you're full of fucking shit. And they're like, like, just a hard backpedal. But I was glad that they were in there, because there's clearly something going on where I've developed this delusional kind of like bunch of shit that I did. And they were there. They were in the place to get the help for it. And it wasn't my responsibility to call them out, but well, I was there, so. But yeah, and I mean, it's I wish, dude, man, like offline over a beer, dude, I would love to tell you all the greasy fucked up gunfights to it. Not there's a lot, but there's some good ones and some good stuff that I just like in conscious like share with the rest of the people, you know. And I wish I could, because I want them to be proud of the men that they sent to these wars, that they trusted to go. Like, if something ever happened to you and you're scooped on a vacation in Mexico or in France or the Philippines or anywhere in the world, the men that are coming to save you are good dudes, and you should trust in their skills, and you should be proud of their ability to do that, and you should honor that shit. And I know that the secrets need to be kept in order for them to be able to rescue you in your worst moment to go and do that. And I just wish that it was in the purview of the nature of that business for you to hear about their adventures and about how much they love their job and about how much they They adore their fellow comrades, and the places that we got sent to do the things that we got to do to really bad fucking people, because it's fucking epic. And I just wish that there was a forum, maybe in 100, I don't know, man, maybe when I'm 80, I won't give a fuck and I'll tell all those stories. But yeah.
No, yeah, that's yeah, it's especially nowadays with the internet, you can't hide your service, right? Like you post something on Facebook of you and, 3 VCs on one side, a Medal of Honor, and, a SEAL trident, plus you're wearing a green beret, beret with the, their cat badge and stuff like that. And you're like, yeah. And I first started as a Ranger, and then I did some CIA work. I can't talk about it. And then these people post those pictures, and there's always somebody that's going to go like, that's not how you wear that uniform. That's not how you do that. Or the other thing is like, I can do all the research I want on CSOR JTF2, and I can learn a bunch, whatever. But you can't fake the knowledge that comes in from being on the different platoons, squadrons, this, that. Like there's all this little stuff. And as much as you try and read some books, they have to be like, okay, what was the colored door going into, the CO's thing, right? And maybe it was made orange for some weirdo reason, right? But there's all that kind of stuff that you can't fake knowing certain stuff like that. And
what was that movie? Was it Ronin, where Robert told the guy, I was like, what color is the boathouse in Hereford?
Yeah.
Where a guy said it was Sean Bean. He was like,
Sean Bean was acting all like the expert one that's been there, done that, and he was the idiot who didn't know how to set up an ambush or anything.
Yeah, like what color is the boat? Yeah, you're right, man. And and I honestly, I've never been to Hereford. I don't know what color the boathouse is. I was 14 years in the GY there.
Yeah, I mean, but again, it's like you said, there's something there, and you're wondering why. Like, I mean, there's guys that you could just be in the jump company of, Patricia's RCR or whatever. And there's awesome stuff in that. Like, you don't got to lie and try and say that you were CSOR JTF2. Like, there's great prestige within those regiments as well in their history. So we've almost been going now 4 hours.
Wow. Okay. So we can call it.
Yeah, we can, we can always do a second episode another day and stuff like that. I mean, this is awesome.
Yeah, thanks, man. I didn't really look track at time myself either.
I wasn't really too much either. I was like, okay, we're at an hour. Okay, we're at 2 hours. I'm like, oh shit, this is almost 4 hours.
It's been an absolute treat to do this, dude. I prepared less for this. Well, I was really nervous doing this stuff, dude. And the older I get and the more removed from the military I get, the less, it's going to sound rude, but the less fucks I give about certain things. So I've shared more here authentically than in any of the other ones.
Thank you.
That, and like no offense, it's not because of this one felt special. It's just where I'm at. This one does feel cool. Like you make your guests, like you made me anyway, feel very comfortable. And like you said, like, let's just shoot the shit. And I do this a lot. I FaceTime shoot the shit with my buddies, and this is more or less what that felt like. I don't know how many people are going to see this, but I mean, we'll see.
We'll see. I mean, a lot of people were liking and enjoying like just the announcement that we were going to do a show together. So
yeah, I was super impressed.
I'm gonna think that this might be one of my biggest episodes. Just for what I got beforehand and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm thinking so. Well, I mean, one of the bigger ones I got before was with the doctor. So, and that didn't have nearly the same kind of pre-chatter that this did. So I'm interested to see how many people really enjoy the cowboy kind of thing like that. Cause that seems to change just kind of a lot of the drive for it. So I think people kind of enjoy that lifestyle where they'd be like, it's that simple, traditional, you almost take away everything and it's
pretty pure.
Yeah. Very pure. So I mean, this has just been awesome. And chatting with you, and I love how you were open and honest and stuff like that, like with this and the audience, and that's the stuff that people respond to, is when they see you be like, look, this might make me choke up, and they can hear it in the voice, and that's what makes them connect so much more to you. So
yeah, there's an
absolutely just thank you.
An element of vulnerability and human connection that I get to enjoy now in retirement that I'm not worried about it. And some people think that it's stupid, and that's fine. I don't really care. It's just me. But and being authentic to me, man, I in my personal opinion, I talked more about Army stuff than I kind of really wanted to, but that's where it went, and whatever. And I don't normally talk about that stuff anymore. So that's kind of refreshing to kind of remember old memories and stuff, and old friends I got to soldier with.
Well, thank you for being on the show. And for everyone, thank you for watching. This has been a good long one. And see you next time.
Take care, bro.
Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thanks for your time. Please like, subscribe, and comment to help grow the show. And remember, get back up.